I wanted to read an appendix to an article of mine on the resurrection, which I've already read here on this channel. And it's responding to Christian arguments for the resurrection. So I'll just go through these one at a time. 1. If Jesus did not rise from the dead, how do you explain the conversion of his enemy, the Apostle Paul? Response. Paul was a deeply disturbed person who thought that wayward Jews should be arrested and potentially executed when he himself was a Jew. I believe that he probably had a guilt-induced vision or manic episode, which he later interpreted to be about Jesus. He then saw his opportunity and inserted himself into the Jesus movement, which he then essentially attempted to dominate. For some people, power, influence, and authority are strong motivators. These were potentially motivators for Paul, consciously or subconsciously, even though I think he believes what he was preaching. But he was deluded, and he was an extremely unclear communicator, as the meaning of his letters, even on major doctrines, is still intensely debated, even 2,000 years later. 2. If Jesus did not rise from the dead, why did his brother James, who rejected him, come to be a major figure in the church? Response. There's actually no way to prove that James hadn't joined the Jesus movement by the time of Jesus' execution. The verses referred to by Christians to support this are from various points in Jesus' ministry, where his brethren in general are said not to believe in him. However, the Gospels are not a reliable source of history, and none of them say that James specifically had not come to faith by the end of Jesus' ministry. Finally, if he had converted after Jesus' execution, he himself could have simply been one swept up into Jesus movement afterwards. Once some of them started reporting visions, or potentially being related to Jesus, he could have seen an opportunity for authority. He later became a Christian celebrity, and seen Jesus as compatible with traditional Judaism. 3. If Jesus did not rise from the dead, why didn't his enemies simply produce the body and refute the whole Jesus movement? Response. The preaching of the resurrection of Jesus probably began many months or a few years after he was executed, and I personally believe that at first they preached a spiritual resurrection, that is, God raised his spirit to heaven. I don't believe that anyone knew where he was buried, which may have been a common grave. All of the gospel accounts and Acts contain completely made-up events and conversations as to what happened shortly after Jesus' execution. Those narratives reflect Christian myth-making from decades later. 4. If Jesus did not rise from the dead, how do you explain the apostles going to their tortured deaths and never once recanting? Response. There's no reliable historical evidence that even a single one of them claimed to be eyewitnesses of the risen Jesus in physical form, or that a single one of them were tortured or died for their defense of the physical resurrection of Jesus specifically. Stories about their deaths are from hagiographies written centuries later, when all sorts of works were being produced which purported to tell some story from the first century, usually casting a biblical character in an extremely favorable light, performing miracles prolifically, and so on. Read the Acts of Paul and Thecla, for instance, to see the kind of nonsense that was already circulating by the 2nd century, and there are many other such works. 5. God chose to spread his religion in this way because he doesn't want to force anyone to believe. If the proof were irrefutable, then people would be forced to believe, which is not what he wants. Response. Then it's a particular kind of determinism. If someone tends to believe fantastic second-hand accounts, they're well-pleasing to God. If they require first-hand knowledge or absolute proof, then they will be damned. But actually, in this case, we don't even have second-hand accounts of the resurrection. We have mostly anonymous accounts from authors combining existing accounts. It's not virtue or humility that leads someone to believe in the current Bible, especially with today's scientific and historic information. It's gullibility. The more informed one is, the less appealing Christianity seems, not because it doesn't have a lovely message at times, but because it's founded on a book filled with errors. 6. It's naive to think that most of Israel, or a large part of the Roman Empire, would have converted just from miracles. The Bible records many people seeing miracles and not converting. Response. No, it is not naive, and someone stating that it is simply does not understand human nature. If a real human being sees a miracle, it's a life-changing event. If thousands of real human beings saw miracles, as the Bible describes, the entire history of the world from the 1st century onward would look dramatically different, because real human beings would respond in an incredible way. If those miracles had happened, no one would need to make any apologetic arguments. History would make it extremely obvious. Additionally, the Bible records people seeing miracles and not converting because they are characters in a fictional story that never happened, often the caricatured super evil person or group, serving as a foil to the good guys, purposely written to be unrealistically stupid or wicked. So people didn't convert from the other miracles in the Bible because none of those happened either. So those are 6 arguments for the resurrection and my response to them. And again, this is an appendix to this article, which I've already read on this channel. And this will be linked in the description and also the pinned comment. Okay, thanks for watching. See ya.